Hello, Weekend Movie Bros fans. As you can see, it is just me for the first time ever by myself on the channel. Now I am doing this simply because my brother has not watched this week's episode yet of Mandalorian. However, that's why I put this in the title, so when he sees it, it's all about today's episode, so that way he doesn't watch it. We are gonna get right into this. So I have so much to process. First off, obviously we're going to talk about it on next week's show. We're going to be doing episodes 4 and 5 for next week's podcast. But I needed to just release my geek for this because first off, I am an absolute fan of Dave Filoni and the work he has done for Star Wars to this point. He has done tremendous work in animation, live action now, and overall lore based for Star Wars. And what him and Favreau did today fundamentally changes the way we look at live action Star Wars television going forward because of the implications they have for this episode, the tremendous, tremendous job they did bringing a character to life, and what that means now going forward for all of Star Wars to come. Because so much happened this episode that it's just mind-boggling. It really, 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 really is. So I'm not going to do a breakdown of the episode. I just want to talk about implications. I mean, obviously, the beginning of the no breakdown yet. I'm about to do a little bit of a breakdown at the beginning of this episode. Not much though. We see her. We see Ahsoka, and it's beautiful. It truly is. I had no reaction when this episode started this morning at 10:30, at 9:30, sorry, in the morning when I woke up. I immediately went to Disney Plus and started the episode because I didn't want to look at Facebook or anything. I just wanted to watch the episode, and I did. And holy shit! So, but yeah, we see her, and then we find out stuff about Grogu. I will not say what that implies, but we find out about Grogu and how his story will move forward with this show. We also learn about Tython, which is one of the main Jedi homeworlds. We've also learned that Ahch-To was a main Jedi hub from Rebels. So I don't know if that Christian and Mike talked about this on Schmodown today, but I don't know if they're getting it muddled or in some way scenarios. I've always heard now there are two separate Jedi homeworlds. One might be for the temple, and one might be for where the order started. I'm not sure. But the biggest thing they talked about in this episode, by far, it wasn't Ahsoka, which we'll get to in a minute, and I'll explain why I'm saying that. It wasn't the Grogu. It wasn't Tython. It was Grand Admiral Thrawn. Now, this is where my knowledge of Star Wars is going to come into play. If you are a fan of the Filoni era, you will know that Clone Wars and Rebels are tightly knit together. The end of Rebels ends with Ezra Bridger and Grand Admiral Thrawn being on the bridge of a Star Destroyer, wrapped around by Force-sensitive Force whales, being shot into the unknown regions at the end of the show. And the last shot of Rebels is Ahsoka Tano and Sabine Wren getting ready to go look for Ezra in the unknown region. The last thing Ahsoka says to the magistrate is, "Where is Grand Admiral Thrawn?" Which means they made it out. Now, there could be a couple scenarios in this section. They found Ezra and Grand Admiral Thrawn, and Thrawn escaped, but they got Ezra. Or they found Grand Admiral Thrawn, and Ezra's dead. Those are my only two scenarios that are going on here, because she's pissed, because she wants to know where he is, and there's no Sabine either, which is even curiouser, because now that means that now that Mando or Din got the pike of Beskar, what's going to happen with the fight between Din and Moff Gideon now? Is he going to use Is he going to use the Darksaber versus the pike, or are we going to see Ahsoka again use her brilliant white lightsabers against it, or is it going to be Bo-Katan? I don't know. There's a lot to discuss here. Now, the other big elephant in the room involves Din Djarin, aka Mandalorian, which is Pedro Pascal. Now, we know that he is having trouble on set with non-removing of the helmet, and they kind of explained it in show of why he can't remove it, because he's part of an ancient zealot group that refuses to take their helmets off because it's the old Mandalore way. I get that. But Acting wise, I understand from his perspective of why he wants the helmet off. He wants to be a little more expressive, and he is still in the suit. But let's say season 2 ends how I think it's going to. Now, to be fair, I thought this episode was going to go very differently. I thought that this episode was going to end with Moff Gideon killing Ahsoka to get the M count that we learned about from last week's episode, involving the M count of midichlorian count, because it'd be stronger with Ahsoka over Baby Yoda. Clearly, I was wrong. Clearly, I'm glad I was wrong because it just made it all the more better. So we now know that they're going to Tython, and they're going to set Baby Yoda on the Seeing Stone to let him choose his own way of like what he wants to do with his life. Does he want to continue on the Mandalorian path with Din, or does he want to become a Jedi? I think he should do both, but that's just me. And she says to him, a Jedi will notice his presence and come looking for him. But then she says, there's not a lot of Jedi left. So again, it makes my assumption. Did Ezra die in the unknown regions? Like, was Thrawn able to get away and kill him? Highly doubtful, but it could be a thing. Now, the other thing everybody's talking about is, well, what about Sebastian Stan? As we all know, Mark Hamill has even given his level of condolence of Sebastian Stan playing a young Luke Skywalker in some way, shape, or form in Star Wars. That's the other thing, because in the timeline, this would take place before the events of Force Awakens. Because, he's still going out and, recruiting people from like the comics, or, he would have found the Force trees. He'd still be being Luke from the comics. So therefore, he'd still be kind of younger, but not too old. And it would make sense if he would have went to find Baby Yoda and Din at this temple. But then why wasn't it? It doesn't make sense to do him. I think the only other option is Ezra. And so I don't think Ezra died in the unknown region with Thrawn. I think Sabine and Ahsoka found him, and Ezra and Sabine are together. They're off somewhere. He's healing up, and so that's what I think is going to happen with Ezra. I think we're going to see Ezra at the end of the season. Now, we've already had 2 major plays with characters from the movies and from cartoon. We saw Boba Fett, which I can now just say it's Boba Fett. I was trying so hard to find his name. Maybe it was Rex, but it's not. I don't even want to see Rex anymore. I really don't. I don't think Rex is going to show up anymore. I really don't. That is now a far and away thing for me. I don't think we're going to see Rex. But what I do find interesting is that we now have Boba, Bo, and Ahsoka. And if things keep going the way they're going right now with Pedro offset, they could push Mando season 3 a little bit and work on either the Boba spinoff series, a Bo-Katan spinoff series, or the inevitable Ahsoka Tano one, because why would you throw it away? So here's what I think is going to happen. We're going to end this season on the cliff of cliffhangers. Something's going to go down. This is going to be like Empire level, holy shit, what are we going to do moment. I really think it's going to end like that. We're going to get a year break. Between that, we're going to get either the Boba miniseries. We know we're getting Obi-Wan still, and we've got Ahsoka, and now we've got Bo. Now, I think the Ahsoka Bo stuff can tie in, because I think Moff Gideon, if he doesn't die in this season, can split off to the other Rebel stuff, because he's got the Darksaber. That's implications from Mandalore with Bo-Katan, but the last person to have the Darksaber was not Bo-Katan, it was Sabine's mother. So that's how I think they can interconnect that with a little bit. Now, the Ahsoka stuff could be about trying to find Grand Admiral Thrawn with Ezra and Sabine. They run into Poe. They mention Mandalorian, and then all 4 of them team up with Mando to find Moff Gideon, the Dark Troopers, in the inevitable season 3 of Mandalorian. That's what I think is going to happen with that. Boba Fett's going to be his own thing. I think it's going to be a singular miniseries about how he got out of the pit, what he's been doing on Tatooine, and how he's going to try to find his way back. Apparently there was a mention or showing of Slave 1 in the show, and I have not seen it. Obi-Wan right now is the big mystery, because they have set up 3 beautiful shows, and yet we still have nothing about Obi-Wan Kenobi. That is a problem to me. That is a monumental problem, because they have set up these 3 great characters in this show, and yet there's no talk of Obi-Wan. It's got me worried. I'm not gonna lie. Um, let's see what else. There's a bunch of Easter eggs in this episode. I'm gonna try to stop saying but it's my go-to. When Din, I hate this still. We now have a name for little guy. We have a name for Mandalorian. His name's Din Djarin. His name is Din. Use his name. He is not Mando. He's not Mandalorian. His name is Din. I understand you're just subjugated with him being Mandalorian. I get that. But his name is Din. So sorry. When Din is going through the forest, if you look in the trees, you see Moria, who is the owl we've constantly seen with Ahsoka. Now, people have either said this is the sister from the Trinity of Force that we saw in the 3-part saga on Clone Wars. Sure, unless it says something, I don't know. We saw her at the end of Clone. We saw the owl at the end of Clone Wars. We saw the owl when Ahsoka leaves at the end of Rebels, and we saw the owl. I think in Clone, and we saw the owl in. Saw the owl. It was 3 times, I believe. Now let's get to Ahsoka. I think she looked great in this episode. I think Rosario Dawson did the role justice. I haven't seen anything from Ashley Eckstein at all, so I guarantee you should probably watch the episode. I guarantee you her and Dave watched it together, which is awesome. She was so good. In every single scene she was in, from the opening to the end, it was just beautiful. And then Ludwig, who does the composing for Mandalorian, I guarantee you he worked with Kevin Kine, who did the music for Rebels and Clone Wars, who made the beautiful Ahsoka theme we hear at the end of Clone Wars in the 4-part movie, and also in Rebels when she fights Vader and Twilight of the Apprentice. It was beautiful. It was awesome to hear. But here's my big thing with Ahsoka. And John Campea brings this up on his show a lot. And it's the truth with some creators of their work. They love to just throw them in your faces. My biggest knowing of that is Todd McFarlane with Spawn. And I'm not saying anything bad against anybody who likes to show off their characters. Show them off. If they're great, show them off. But, Filoni has always been about Ahsoka Tano. That was the character that him and George created together. It's his baby, and I understand that. But he changed the route of Clone Wars to be the Ahsoka show by the end, which, again, I don't mind at all. I love the ending of Clone Wars more than anybody in this world. And again, I love what they did with her in Rebels. It added everything together. So don't get me wrong. I love when he does it. But I was really nervous that this episode was just going to be straight about all Ahsoka. No Mandalorian, maybe some of Grogu, but that was it. The fact that they were able to hold the fort down and not let this be the Ahsoka show, I'm very proud of. But let's talk about Dave Filoni in general. He directed the premiere episode, and he directed the Bill Burr, not the Bill Burr one. He directed the Gunslinger episode from season 1. He directed the first and I believe the 5th of the first season. I love the first episode of Mandalorian because it's the first episode. I do not like his other episode at all. I don't think it's well directed, well acted, anything. I don't like the episode at all. That's just me. However, you can tell that he learned from that going into this one because it was beautifully directed. The photography, the lighting in this episode was gorgeous. Seeing the lightsabers go in and out through the smoke and the mist of the episode. Or when Ahsoka and the Magistrate have their fight in her little samurai pond. It's gorgeous. It's simply gorgeous. And then we have our Empire Strikes Back moment in this episode when we see Ahsoka trying to teach Grogu how to use the Force with the stone. He wouldn't do it because he's very, pushed back about using the Force because of what happened in Order 66, which is understandable. But then Din comes in, tries to use the stones, like, see, he's stubborn. He won't do it. Use Grogu. And he did, but he used it with the ball from the ship. And that ball was their connection. And that's why she went and trained him, because she was there with Anakin. The connection between Anakin and Ahsoka, it was just too much. It pushed them in different directions. It brought them back together in the end, but just to see him go down a darker path and become Vader. She doesn't want to see that happen with the Grogu. He's obviously attached to Din. So what's the point of trying to separate that? It's just it's so well done. And I really hope people don't hate on this episode because Dave Filoni wrote and directed it. Praise it. Because again, there are issues with the episode, I'm not gonna lie. The HK droids underused. They could have easily been a great shootout scene with Din, but there wasn't. Michael Biehn from Aliens, Terminator, it's Hicks, it's Reese. He was used well, but not to how much I wanted him to be. And again, those HK droids could have been used a lot better, personally. That's it. That's pretty much it. That's all I really want to get it out. I want to leave this now to you guys. Obviously, we're going to be talking about this once Jacob sees the episode. We'll get more into detail probably on the podcast next week. But I really want to get my thoughts out there because this was the episode of episodes for Mandalorian. I'm currently through my second watch again, which I'm going to put this out there as well. I have not watched an episode of this season twice. I have not watched an episode of the season twice. That should tell you what I feel about this episode. It is beautifully done, brilliantly written, greatly directed. With its issues, yes, I think it underuses some of its characters, but where it doesn't, it fucking shines. And we learned so much in this episode about the lore going forward. What does it mean for the next 3 episodes? What's going to happen? We all know once episode 6 kicked in of Mandalorian season 1, it just wouldn't stop. So I'm thinking the same thing is going to happen with now, but now we have 3 episodes to work with. It was just so good. It was so good. I absolutely love this episode of Mandalorian. Chapter 13, The Jedi, and I cannot wait to see what they go moving forward. Thank you very much for watching this short video with me. I also have a huge announcement to make. Thanks to Netflix, not a sponsor, they are premiering Transformers Earthrise on my birthday, December 30th. So I thought, why not get a bunch of my great friends together, you guys, the community, and we're going to do a live stream commentary on Transformers Earthrise on my birthday, December 30th, leading into the new year. I think it's going to be fun. We're going to have a ball with it. And again, I want to know your thoughts on Mandalorian. What do you think is going to be moving forward? How did you feel about Ahsoka in the episode? I loved it. I think it's one of the best episodes of Mandalorian to date. And I just, they nailed it. They just nailed it. It blows my mind how much they nailed this episode. Now, to let you guys know, we'll be back tomorrow with our live commentary watch along for, oh, good God, Happiest Seasons on HULU. We'll be watching that tomorrow. And then starting next week, we will announce tomorrow what the movie commentaries for December are going to be. They're exciting. And we'll be having our podcast on Thursday. So until then, thank you very much for watching, and we will see you guys in the next video. Bye.